So I've worked in the ER as a PA for quite a few years now, and one of the most challenging or annoying parts of working in the ER is doing night shifts. And in most cases, you can't completely avoid it. So you got to just make the most of it. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 tips for surviving ER night shifts or thriving during ER night shifts. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is adjusting your body clock in advance. So you know what jet lag is. It's like if you fly halfway around the world, then it takes your body a couple days to adjust to the new schedule. Well, the same thing happens. You're jet lagged if you also do a night shift all of a sudden because, well, your body's used to being awake during the day and now it has to be awake during the night, or vice versa. If you did a night shift and then now you have to go back to a day shift. So whichever direction you're going, you're going to be jet lagged. And it takes, maybe a couple days or something to adjust to a new schedule somewhat. So ideally, you want to adjust your body clock in advance. How do you do that? Well, the scenario where you can potentially do that is if you have a little bit of a lead time and then you do some of the night shifts multiple in a row. Say you work 3 night shifts in a row or 5 night shifts in a row, and you had a couple days before that where you could try to prepare. How do you prepare? Well, naturally you'd start staying up a little later, and just kind of getting your schedule shifted. Now, if your schedule is such that you really can't prepare in advance because it's just like a night shift here, a day shift here, another night shift here, and then another day shift, and then that's just bad. That's just bad news. You need to get a new scheduler or something. Because if you're constantly flipping back and forth between night shifts and day shifts, you're going to be jet lagged, you're going to be error prone, you're going to be miserable, and it's terrible for your health. So, so ideally, you can have a chance to kind of prepare your body in advance. Speaking of the health consequences, I have a blog version of this that I'll link to below, and it has links to a couple studies that support that. All right, so tip number 2 for surviving ER night shifts is use caffeine strategically but wisely, not too late. All right, so a lot of people like to drink coffee, wake them up, whatever. So that's good, that's helpful in the early part of your shift. But if you do it in the late part of your shift, now you've got a problem because the half-life of caffeine in your body is about 5 or 6 hours. So 12 hours after you drink it, you still have about 25%, 1/4 of the original amount in your bloodstream. So that's a little too much for good quality sleep. So you want it to have a long time. So try to use caffeine only near the beginning of your shift. Use it, but use it in a timely fashion. So that's basically the story on caffeine. Because you see people who don't do night shifts and they're like drinking caffeine in the evening, drinking coffee in the evening. And you're like, that could be a problem. That is a problem, whether they realize it or not. So same thing if you have a night shift and you're drinking coffee near the end of your night shift. All right, so tip number 3 is avoid sunlight after your shift. So let me give you a couple scenarios. So when I was doing night shifts full-time for a while, my night shift would either end at about 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. And of course, that time might be delayed a little if I had to stay late because there was something I needed to finish up or whatever. But depending on the time of year, it could be dark when I leave, or it'd be bright and sunny when I left the hospital. Especially if I didn't leave till 6:30 or 7 because I had to stay late, and then it was summertime, so it was like getting light really early and that sort of thing. So ideally, you want to avoid sunlight after your shift. Why? Well, because light is the number one thing that regulates your circadian rhythm. So if you're getting bright sunlight right before you're supposed to go home and go to bed, it's telling your body the exact opposite message. It's saying, hey, it's morning, wake up. And so you're going to be reducing your melatonin and you're not going to be able to sleep as well or have as good a quality of sleep. So a lot of the nurses I work with, they don't get off till 7:30, and then sometimes they'll go out to breakfast afterwards after their night shift. And so, I mean, they're getting tons of sunlight after their night shift. So it's kind of a disaster, really, from a health perspective and just like the whole circadian rhythm and all that. So ideally, if you can, if it's bright and out light, like put on some dark shades or something and just try not to actually get any bright sunlight after your shift. So tip number 4, try to do night shifts consistently for a while, if that's an option. So if the 2 options are either to do like a few night shifts per month or to just do them full time for a while, maybe just do them full time for a while. I did night shifts full time for a year, and while that has pros and cons, I would say it's probably better than just like doing a few sprinkled in here and there each month. because you just don't want to be flipping back and forth, because that's the worst thing for your health and for your sanity. Now, it depends on your situation. I don't have kids, so I wasn't worried about like, oh, I got to be awake to take my kid to school or something like that. So there's like different family schedules that kind of mess with that idea in some cases. But if possible, if you can just be on kind of a consistent schedule, and even on my days off, I would stay up till like 5 a.m. so that I could just stay on a consistent schedule. And that's better because then you have a consistent circadian rhythm, sleep schedule, and so forth. All right. So the fifth tip is don't eat anything after about 2 a.m. 2 a.m., assuming you have a night shift that ends at like 6 a.m. or something like that. Why do I say that? Well, I mentioned earlier that light regulates your circadian rhythm, but what's the other thing that regulates your circadian rhythm the most? The second, number 2, is food. Food regulates your circadian rhythm. So when you eat, it tells your body it's daytime, we're doing stuff, we need energy, blah, blah, blah. So it's better not to eat close to the time when you're going to sleep. It's better not to eat close to bedtime. That's true whether you're doing night shifts or not. So ideally, you want to have a few hours or more before bedtime where you're not eating. So in this case, that would mean not eating after maybe like 2 or 3 in the morning. So trying not to eat at the very end of your night shift. And that'll help regulate your circadian rhythm in a positive way. It'll reduce the negative health impacts of night shifts, where people tend to get fatter and have diabetes more and so forth when they do a lot of night shifts. It'll probably reduce those effects if you're not snacking towards the end of your shift as well. So night shifts in the ER can be a bear. They're annoying. They're challenging. But those are some of the tips that I think will help you survive them the best, or make the most of that situation. On a related note, I've got a video here where I talked about several pros and cons of working in the ER in general as a PA, not just about nights, but about everything. And then I don't know why it's related, but for some reason it feels like it is. I've got another video where I talked about how to go on crazy long vacations even while working as a PA, and share some personal experience there as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.